Hello everyone. I was planning to do a tag video today, but with all that's going on in the world, I thought it was more appropriate to do something else. Because, with the murder of George Floyd and all the actions that have sparked from there, I think we are all very aware of the racial divide right now, and I think that's very important, and we should definitely think about that and try to make this movement and this momentum go further and actually achieve something. So I just wanted to add my voice to that struggle, and that's what I'm trying to do in this video. Now, of course, I obviously am a white person, so you have to take that stand that I am a white person and I do not know the black experiences the way that a black person would. With that said, my partner is black, and I have experienced some secondhand racism from that, from what I hear him say, but also from, people in the street giving us the eye, or even some parts of my family, which is particularly stingy, but it is what it is. So yeah, I just wanted to preface that by saying that I am a white person, and this is from a white person perspective that is trying to learn as much as she can from books. And I think that's also the purpose of books, in a way, is to make us understand people that are different from us, and explain us why things might be happening. So on that note, I wanted to make this video recommending you some books about race, or that portray race, that I have read and love. And also at the end, I think I'm going to give you some books that are in the same topic that I want to read, basically. So yeah, let me know if you have read any of these and you like them, or if you haven't read some of the books I haven't read either. You can let me know and maybe buddy read. I'm going to try to read some of these books this month based on what is happening, because I want to understand more about it and immerse myself more in the topic. So without further ado, let's go into the books that are dealing with race that I would really recommend. So the first one is not really a book, it's a series of books, and that is the autobiography series of Maya Angelou. I read this about a couple of years ago, and I really loved it. So this is, I think it's seven or eight books in which Maya Angelou tells her life from the beginning, from when she was little until a certain point in her adulthood. Yeah, and my favorite were the first couple of books where she deals with her childhood and her growing up, but also at the end she works for Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and civil rights movement in the US. So it gives very inside perspective on that fight. The second book I want to recommend, it's Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. And Bryan Stevenson is a lawyer that at some point in his career decided to start an NGO to help black people that had been judged wrongly and very harshly, mostly based on their race. So he offers them legal help for nothing, basically. For there are other people that support him, but the person that is being judged doesn't have to pay, because most of the time they don't have the means. And this is very, very moving. He focuses on a few cases that he has dealt with that are horrible, and I just think it's a very important book that everyone should read. So yeah, the third one is a fiction book, non-fiction, and that's Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is following a girl and a boy that emigrate from Nigeria. So the girl goes to the US and the man goes to the UK. And we see this woman grow up like 20s in America, and she talks a lot about the differences between being an African in America and being an African American, because she was never judged by her race when she was growing up, and that's a very different experience from African Americans that basically from when they are born they are already told that they are less than white people and that police is going to harass them, and since they are very little they see police harassing their parents and their friends and their neighbors. So she deals a lot with that difference and how to deal with it in a way and how she deals with it, and I really recommend this. It's one of my favorite books, and I think she does a fantastic job on getting us to analyze a bit more the American society and its relation to race. And I must say that this is maybe not the most plot-driven or the most novel-worthy book, but I think the messages that it gives are important enough that it's fantastic and worth a read. So yeah, that was the third recommendation. The next one is Why I'm Not Longer Talking to White People About Race by Reni Eddo-Lodge. And this is again a non-fiction about all the ways in which our systems are racist and the systemic racism that our systems are built upon. And that makes sense because our systems, many of them, Europe and the US, and they are built on slavery and colonialism, and therefore they are systemically racist, and that has not disappeared. So Reni Eddo-Lodge argues that not being racist in the way of I personally don't hate black people is not enough, because the systemic disadvantages are there and we have to change those. So yeah, I think that was a very powerful message and a very powerful book, and I really recommend. I think it's particularly important right now to recognize that the fact that racism is not an individual thing, but it's a systemic thing. Then the next book I want to recommend, it's a bit of a lighter read, because I thought many of these books are very heavy, so I'll give you something a bit lighter, and it's Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. And this is basically his memoir of growing up in apartheid South Africa and how that shaped him. But of course he's a comedian, so it's also funny in many places, and I would especially recommend the audiobook because he narrates it himself and he does all the OSHA sounds and all those things, so I would really recommend. And yeah, this basically it's telling how it is to grow up in South Africa, but also how his skin color confuses people sometimes, and how does that shape him. So yeah, I think it is a very good read. And the next book is Citizen by Claudia Rankine. This is a poetry collection, and it explores the experience of racism in America and police brutality. And I normally don't read poetry, it's not something that I gravitate towards, most of it goes over my head, but I thought that this was very good, and it expressed the emotions that black people might feel when they are harassed all of the time very well. So it actually helps understand the feelings of black people, of rage, of how they are second-class citizens. So I really recommend that one as well. Of course, I recommend all of this. My next one is another South African memoir, and that's Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is obviously a very famous person. He fought against the apartheid in South Africa, and he was the first president after apartheid. And he talks about their debates between using violence or not using violence while they were trying to fight apartheid, and how they decide, or he himself decided to approach it, and how horribly they are treated, but how they never stop fighting. And that is also a very strong and very powerful thing to read about, because obviously when you are fighting for something, there is a point in which you burn out, and there is a point in which you think, why is this going? There's nothing that is happening at the end of the day. Am I doing all this for nothing? And he obviously had a very long life, and it took him a long time to achieve what he was fighting for. He spent 24 years in prison, like a very long time. So I think his main message is perseverance, and if you believe in something, you should keep fighting for it. So I think that is a very powerful message, and a very much needed one, because obviously now with the murder of George Floyd, there is a lot of rage and there is a lot of movement, but it's likely that this will die out, and we have to remember that we should not let it die out. We should keep fighting until something happens. So yeah, that is why I'm recommending this one. Then the next one I'm recommending is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. And again, this is a novel about two girls in London, and they want to be dancers, and one of them is more talented than the other, but one of them is black and the other one is not. So we see, in this book, we see again the systemic racism of the system, and how that affects the lives of normal people. And I think that this is also very powerful, because we often think, oh, these racist things happen only in America, and we want to demonize America in that sense, but they happen everywhere. And this book is set in London, so it shows you that it happens everywhere. It's not just police brutality in America because of guns and so on. It is in all of our systems, and it is systemic, and it's built in the society. So I think in that sense this book spreads the message that the two protagonists of this book are, for most of it, they are two little girls. They didn't do anything wrong. They are just innocent girls. So if that affects them, how much does it affect adults? So yeah, very, very good book. Then the next one I reviewed already in this channel, and it's Nichole Boys by Colson Whitehead. And even though in that video, which I will link somewhere, I said that I ranked it 4th in my list of the BookTube prize, but I think it is worth a read. I think it also deals with many of the systemic problems that we have as societies and related to race. And I think that the problem I had with that book is that it didn't connect with me personally, but I have heard from many people that it did connect with them. So I would still give it a try if you're interested, because the story itself, it shows a lot of the racism we have in our systems as well, and it shows you how random these acts of violence against black people are, and how it's never justified. So yeah, I will recommend to give that a try, because I think that from most of the reviews I've heard, some of the people connect with it and love it, and some of the people don't connect with it as much, but still recognize the value of it. And I was in the second category, but you might be in the other one. You might love it, so give it a try. And then the last one I want to recommend is Assata by Assata Shakur. This is an autobiography from Assata Shakur, who was an activist from the Black Panthers, and she was for a long time in the most wanted list of the FBI, I think, FBI or CIA, I don't know. But she was considered a terrorist because she was fighting for the rights of black people to live freely and safely. And this is also a very powerful one, and she had an amazing life, and it is so frustrating that these things have to happen, that you can be demonized for fighting for what white people already have, just a safe environment that doesn't discriminate against you. So yeah, that one is, I think it's very timely, and I think that it's very important as well. So those are the books I would recommend that you read. Yeah, I think if you pick up any of these, it will be great. It will give more perspective of what we are dealing with and what we are fighting for. But of course I don't know everything, so I also want to read some books that give me that and expand my knowledge in the topic, because that is what books are for, in my opinion, to expand your knowledge about life. And yeah, so some of the books I am looking forward to read. The first one is Superior by Angela Saini, and I have read Inferior from her, and I really liked it. Inferior was about how science discriminates against women. Superior talks about how there are biases on racial biases on science, and how that affects our discoveries, and how we treat different people, and how that affects their everyday lives. So I am really looking forward to that. The next one that I really want to read is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And this one basically I think it's like a memoir, and explains how race has affected the author, and how to be a good supporter of the anti-racism movement. Even if you are not black, you can still try to support the movement and yeah, be an ally. The next one I want to read is White Fragility by Robin Diangelo, and I think that this is talking about how normally white people get very defensive when they want to be, when they are confronted with racism, and they're like, oh, but I am not racist. And this book tries to talk about why that might be, and how we can stop that. The next one I have listed is Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad, and as far as I understand, this is a workbook in which you are actively confronted with your personal biases, and how basically when you are confronted with that, you probably would want to change that. So yeah, that is the premise of the book as far as I know. And I think this one is free online as an ebook, if I'm not mistaken. You can of course also support the author and buy the book, but it's also freely available, I think. The next one I want to read is How to Get Free by Keeanga-Yamahita Taylor. And this one is about the intersectionalism of black feminism. I am interested in feminism, but I'm also interested in race. And I think that it is also very interesting to see how the two things interact, and yeah, how we can support that as well as white people. And the last one I am interested in is White Rage by Carol Anderson. And this is again talking about the racial divide and how yeah, basically all these people that are saying that, oh, racism is not a thing anymore, and we should just talk about violence instead, or like everyone's rights instead of just the black rights, or the violence against black people, because it affects everybody, blah blah blah, which is of course stupid, because white people are not systematically taken away from society, and their rights are not systematically taken away from them just because of their color of the skin. So that one is the last one in my list of things I want to read. I don't know if I will be able to read all of this in this month, but I'll try to go at least through some of these in this time, because I think it is very important that we all try to fight against this. So yeah, I hope you like this video. I hope you are interested in some of these books, and let me know what you thought about them, and if you have any other recommendations, I would love to look into them as well. So yeah, that is for me. See you in the next video. Bye.